Hello there and welcome to Star Wars 1000, and today I will be reviewing the entire series of Obi Wan Kenobi. Spoilers for everything Obi Wan Kenobi ahead. So after watching all 6 episodes of this series, I feel the show overall was pretty good with some really stupid moments. And just like really laughably silly scene. There were scenes like this throughout the series where it took me out of the moment but didn't ruin anything for me, because I feel like there's a lot of great stuff in here, a lot of just some good things, fine things, and just a lot of stupidity, weird, inconsistent, uneven things. The way I feel about this show is the way I feel about Return of the Jedi, where there's some of my favorite moments in the entire Star Wars universe, but there's some of the most stupidest things I've ever seen in Star Wars. And that's how I feel with this show. And like with Return of the Jedi, I feel like this show could have been better and had the potential to be even better. If you saw my video with the things I wanted to see most from this series, most of the things I wanted to see from the series ended up happening, so I'm really happy about that as well. I wish some of it was executed a little better, but it's still pretty good for what it was. Like, the thing I wanted to see most was Vader fight Kenobi again and have Kenobi go through the process that this is no longer his best friend, this is no longer his brother. They fought each other twice, which I unfortunately didn't like any of their fights in this series. So I guess I'm just never going to like any of their fights in general. I haven't liked a single fight between Vader and Obi-Wan, or Vader slash Anakin. I didn't like their fight in episode 3 on Mustafar either. I felt like that was way over the top. Here, I felt like the fight was once again really over the top. Also, seeing Vader like swing the lightsaber around like he's from the prequels was really strange to see. And I think it should have been more like the original trilogy fighting style. But there was a really cool fight between Reva and Vader. That was really badass. Like, with how the way he was not even using his lightsaber. That's what I want to see from more Force users. I don't even want to see them use their lightsabers. I want to see more Force users just use the Force and not even use their lightsaber. That's what I wanted to see Yoda do more when back in the prequels, but he ended up using his lightsaber for everything. But here, Vader was just using the Force to deflect the lightsaber, and that's what I wanted to see from more Force users. So I hope we see this kind of fighting style in the future. So I like all of the characters in the series. Obi-Wan was obviously really cool in this series. He went from being this broken man to becoming the Ben Kenobi we see, or more like the Ben Kenobi we see. He still uses the fighting style from the prequels, but he sounds more like the in-between of Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor from the prequels. That was the main thing I wanted to see from this show. I wanted to see his journey to becoming Ben Kenobi, and we got to see that in this series, so that's something I really liked. Vader in this series was freaking amazing. Like with Kenobi, this feels like the in-between the prequels and the original trilogy, and I feel like after this show, he becomes more composed and more lethal because he directs his anger towards his fighting style and not just like have blind rage with everything. We also heard his Imperial March theme by the end of the series, so I guess that's like confirming that he's more the Vader that we know. I think they did a really good job with portraying Vader in this series. They showed the conflict that his character has while showing him be extremely badass. I really like most of the scenes with Vader in episode 3. I thought he was really freaking cool. The way he was taking down the village people, the way he was just menacing and ruthless, and he just likes to play games with everyone. And I really liked Vader in this series. I hope we see Vader in more things in the future. I don't know if this is the best we've seen from Vader, but it's one of the best things we've ever seen from Vader. I really like Vader from Rogue One, and I know we don't see a lot of him, but I feel like with Vader, less is more, and I feel like his scenes become more impactful the less we see of him. And I felt like that with Rogue One, and his presence in Rogue One was incredible. I think, I don't know, but with the way we see Vader in this series was really freaking cool, and I liked most of what they did with Vader. There's a couple things I didn't like. Felt like they did a little bit of Starkiller thing with holding down the ship. You know how I feel about Starkiller. If you saw my video, I'm not the biggest fan. I think the pulling down the ship thing is not something I'm a fan of, and it is what it is. I mean, I can just ignore it. But yeah, I didn't like that, and his fights with Kenobi I didn't like either. But other than those two things, Vader was really cool in this series, and I really liked his presence and what he brought to this series. Probably the third main character in this show, Riva. I felt like she was just fine. She was a new character to give the show some stakes. We saw a character arc from her, as a similar character arc we've seen from other people, but it was interesting seeing how she was a youngling that survived Anakin Skywalker. She survived stab wounds twice. I can believe it one time, but twice, like, come on now, that's a little. You need a little explanation there how you're able to survive. Is there like, did her parents or someone give her like some sort of ability to survive stab wounds or something? Like, that needs some explaining. I don't know what the future of her character is. Maybe I'll make a video what I think could go, where her character could go from here. But overall, I felt like she was just fine. I didn't love her character. I didn't hate her character. She was just kind of there for me, and I found some things about her character to be very interesting. I felt like Moses Ingram did a good job with portraying the character and showing how she could be menacing at times, but not fully convincing of being a full-on inquisitor, because she had this conflict from the start, and she didn't even want to really be a bad guy, but the dark side was just messing with her head so much that she was losing herself, because her main goal was to take revenge on Vader, but the dark side messed with her head, and she almost became the thing that she hated. So I thought some of that was interesting. Could have been executed a little better, but I'm interested to see where her character goes from here. But she was just fine, and nowhere near one of my favorite characters from the series. But she was essentially the third main character in this show, and I felt like she was just fine. Probably my favorite new character from this show is Haja Estri. I like the performance, and I like the idea of a fake Jedi trying to take advantage of people in the Star Wars universe, but he's not really a bad guy. Kind of has that Han Solo type to him, but he has a cool character, and I just really liked him in the series. I felt like he stole a lot of scenes that he was in, and I hope we see him in more future Star Wars projects. I really liked his character, actually, and I hope we get like a comic book series, a backstory to him. And he was like kind of like the Han Solo in this series to me, like someone that was just kind of not fully a bad guy, but had this cool vibe to him. And I really liked Haja in this series, and I hope we see him in future stuff. Also, I liked Leia in the show too. She was also like basically the third or fourth main character up there with Riva. I liked her a lot. I felt like she really portrayed a young Leia really well. She really embodied what Carrie Fisher brought to the role. She did a good job of portraying a young Carrie Fisher, and I really applaud her for what she did in the show, because she was really incredible when you think about it. Her age and what she was able to do, and the way she stole scenes and had the sassiness of what Leia would bring. And I just really liked young Leia in this series. I liked the addition of a young Leia, and Obi-Wan knowing her. At first, I didn't know how I felt about that, but at the end of the series, I felt like I really liked Kenobi and Leia's relationship, and I felt like it added more context to a lot of scenes and in the original trilogy, and I think it expanded on the universe in a positive way, expanded on the original trilogy, and I really appreciated what Leia brought to this show. I really liked Obi-Wan Leia's relationship, and I liked her in this series. There was also Tala in this show. She was really forgettable to me, in my opinion. I did not care about her, and I'm not saying I didn't like her. She was just kind of there, along with Ice Cube's son. He was just kind of forgettable in this show as well, and I didn't really care for what happened to his character, to be honest with you. But you know, it is what it is. I don't dislike the characters. It's just very forgettable, and I feel like wasted potential, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm left with a pretty good feeling after the show. It's pretty good. It's one of my favorite Star Wars shows of all time. I'll do a list sometime down the line, somewhere down the line, where I'll rank every single Star Wars show, probably after the Ahsoka show, because the Ahsoka show has been my most anticipated Star Wars show, because it's the sequel to Rebels, and we're going to probably see a live-action Ezra and live-action Thrawn, which both of them are one of my all-time favorite characters, and same thing with Ahsoka. And I like the Rebels characters more than a lot of the original trilogy and prequel trilogy characters. That's probably a hot take. That's just my opinion, and I'm glad that we're going to be seeing them in live action. So after the Ahsoka show comes out, I'll rank every single Star Wars show. And one more thing I would like to add, though, is something that bothered me was the fact that the fifth brother just kind of disappeared. He kind of had like a character arc in this series. He kind of wanted to be the Grand Inquisitor, and he just completely disappears along with the other Inquisitor that never said anything, I just felt like it was wasted potential. I really wanted to see all of the Inquisitors in the series. I wanted to see Vader take on the Inquisitors in practice. I wanted to see Kenobi take on some Inquisitors. I think it would have been interesting to see Kenobi versus like the Reva, the fifth brother, and the Grand Inquisitor. I think that would have been a cool action scene. I think all three of them in Kenobi's weakened state could be a very cool and interesting fight, because I think all three of them would be cause Kenobi a challenge. And also, I really disliked what they did with the Grand Inquisitor in this series. I thought like he was great when he was on the screen. Like Rupert Friend did a really good job as the Grand Inquisitor in this series. I did not think he was going to be this freaking cool. He took over the scene, has so many great lines in this show. His presence was just, I don't want to say gave me goosebumps, but it was just really cool. I really like the Grand Inquisitor in this series, and he stole many scenes that he was in. I hope we see live action Grand Inquisitor in the future. I thought it wasn't going to be as good as it could be because of Jason Isaacs, but I think Rupert Friend kind of did a better job than Jason Isaacs. That might be a hot take. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just the way the Grand Inquisitor was in the series, the way he looked, the way, I know a lot of people don't like the way he looked. I thought he was okay, but the way he looked with the cape and just his presence on screen, I really like the Grand Inquisitor in this series, and I like the way it was performed and acted. And I hope we see him in future Star Wars projects. And I wish we saw him more in this series. I wish we saw more of him than we saw of Reva. I feel like we could have had a lot of Reva in this series while also having the Grand Inquisitor still around. I wanted to see more scenes with him and Vader, but he's just not there. He's not there enough. But when he was there and when he was on screen, had such a great presence and very memorable presence and very, very quotable lines. Probably some of my favorite lines from him is where he talks about the Jedi Code was like an itch, and how he talks to Reva at the end of episode 5, and he's like, "Revenge does wonders for the will to live, don't you think?" I really like that line too, and I like the lines he had with Vader in episode 6. It's just very memorable and had a cool presence on screen. I hope we see him in future projects for sure. So overall, pretty good show. I enjoyed watching it. I think the lowest I rated episode was an 80, and that's pretty good. So overall, I think the show was pretty good. The things I wanted to see in this series, we saw. I think it's a nice bridge to the original trilogy for the most part. Could be a little better. Things could have been executed a little better. Wish some really stupid things weren't in the show, but there's like a lot of stupid things in Star Wars. So, I wish it wasn't the case, but it is what it is, and it doesn't ruin the experience for me. The show, overall, I felt like was pretty good. I liked the dialogue. I liked a lot of the very emotional scenes they did a good job with. And I'd give this show an 83%. So, to wrap up the video, may the Force be with you always.